conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
Say less, Jess.
Say less, Jess. That rhymes.
Say less, Jess.
Is that your new?
Yeah, baby.
Would you prefer say less, Jess, or pay less, Jess?
I don't like either. If you're picking my nicknames, I'm passing.
I was trying to think of other things that rhyme. Were you talking about Payless shoes?
Yeah.
Where'd they go?
Yeah.
They're gone, aren't they? I haven't
Do
seen
they
one.
exist anymore?
I haven't seen one in a long time.
That is where I got shoes as a kid.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
Me
yeah.
too.
Pay
Me too.
less.
100% I paid less. My parents paid less.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
I got my Adidas and my Nikes. All my off-brand
No, really though.
shoes. I mean, Payless. I mean, you buy a pair of shoes for $10 and then just wear them till they like fell off your feet, and then
My problem was as a kid, the Payless shoes always made marks on everything.
Oh, yeah,
in
for
the,
sure.
the gym and things like that. And so like everybody knew that you were there. You know?
Yeah.
They were just, even if
Okay.
like sports shoes.
just an update from the field here. Payless is still in business, but as a different company following a 2019 bankruptcy.
Really?
The original Payless shoe source closed in North America, but the brand continues internationally.
What's
on a
the
smaller
brand?
scale. I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says it's an e-commerce, more of an e-commerce brand.
You
I
know
don't
who I'm
Wow.
doubting ever wore Payless?
I don't know who you're doubting. You're about to say
He's gonna say
someone
somebody
was
random.
rich.
Kanye?
I'm guessing, and we haven't talked about this yet,
Okay.
but our new producer of the podcast,
Oh,
we no
yeah.
longer have Austin.
Oh,
I
you
think our
just-
new producer,
What a
Bryce.
way to introduce.
Yeah.
Bryce, did you ever shop at Payless? He has no clue what it is.
He's too
But
young.
he's a little bit younger than us.
He is
Yeah.
younger. Okay,
He-
we'll get
yeah.
that to
Maybe
him.
that's why.
He
Because
wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great introduction.
DSW. He was a DSW guy at Village Point.
where did your mom
so-
take you to buy your shoes?
Famous footwear.
Kohl's?
Famous footwear.
Oh.
I nailed
Footwear,
it. Got
okay.
it. Yeah.
Yep,
We are
yep.
missing Austin, but
That's a good
Bryce,
one.
he might be the new name you hear every so often.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout
And he's
out.
just fitting
Welcome
in
to the
nicely
team.
with us.
Yeah.
He's already put up with a lot today. So
There's a lot of diva-ing that happens at the beginning of the show. So
we'll let
it
everyone guess who that is.
takes a
Yeah.
special person to tolerate it
That's
all.
why sometimes Jess isn't on. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Alex is not the diva at all.
No.
Never. Speaking of divas, do we have a voicemail?
We do have a voicemail.
I know that no content. I don't even know who this is or what this is, so I'm sorry if this is a female because that's going to sound really pointed.
I guess
Wow,
we'll
you-
see. We will see. Here it is.
What up, podcast people? It's Brianne Perkins here. Just wanted to say thanks so much for the wedding shout out a couple weeks back. And Tad and I have been happily married for 1 month. I'm curious to hear, since it's now officially fall, kind of, I think it's officially fall, would you rather have something pumpkin or apple flavored? You tell me. Thanks so much, guys. Talk to you later.
Little technical issue there with our voicemail
weird.
cutting in and out, but I think the question was, would you rather have pumpkin spice flavor or apple flavor in the fall?
I think just pumpkin flavor.
Oh, pumpkin flavor.
Pumpkin
Okay, my
flavor or
bad. My
apple.
bad. I was overreaching there with the spice. Why can't we have both? I don't know. I don't like this. I don't like
Maybe
this
it's
game.
like if you're choosing like an apple pie or a pumpkin pie.
I love fall because of both of those things. I like pumpkin. I like apples.
Yes.
But I probably do.
Say more, Eric.
I do get excited. Yeah, that rhymes. I do get excited about fall because I do probably have more pumpkin things in the fall than I do any other time of the year. Apple pie, I feel like I could go anywhere with that. Like I feel like you could really have an apple pie
4th
any
of
time of
July.
the year, and it's not like, oh, this is only reserved at Christmas. I could have an apple pie.
Apple
4th of
cider,
July.
though, I feel like is more. Of
That's
the-
true. Yep, hot
Yeah.
cider. Yeah,
I'm voting pumpkin.
yeah.
100 because of those
Really?
reasons.
Why do I think that you could eat a whole pumpkin pie? Have you talked about this before? Like at
I don't think
Thanksgiving?
I've ever talked about this before.
Like, why do I think that you just are like
Probably because
snatching a pumpkin pie?
If you've eaten with me ever, then you probably could assume I could eat everything because I eat very fast.
You just strike me as someone who could just eat a whole pie.
I feel like we've talked
Like
about
you've bragged
this.
about that before, haven't you, Alex? No, I have not.
You
I've
snatched that pumpkin pie
many things I've
off your
from-
mom's counter on Thanksgiving. Okay.
pumpkin pie. I mean, yeah, pumpkin bars, pumpkin
Loaf.
because
Bread.
it feels like pumpkin is more seasonal.
Yeah.
Like I mean, apple cider and things like that, but pumpkin, it's not like April and appropriate to bring pumpkin pie to the Easter.
I mean, they're not growing,
Yeah.
right? They're not
So you know it's not.
popping out of the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
That's I do like apple, but I'm gonna go with pumpkin. What about you, Jess?
I had an odd experience this year
Okay.
of my life where I had a pumpkin spice latte,
Yeah.
and I have never liked those before. And so I'm like, this question is throwing me off.
Did
'cause
you like it
I
this time?
did.
Oh,
And
okay.
I've had multiples.
Yeah.
So I feel very
Was it a different place?
cliche. No.
Starbucks.
Starbucks.
Yeah. I always
But-
I like to get one every year when it's fall and then go, there's that pumpkin
There's that
spice
pumpkin.
latte. But that's probably my least favorite of all the pumpkin-y
Yeah.
things. But
Overall, apple though.
oh
I
yeah.
would say.
What things?
The Honey Crisp.
Okay.
I would rather. Have you seen the meme where it's like I would rather eat a Honey Crisp that's been thrown down 3 flights of stairs than a Fuji apple.
Oh yeah. Fuji's
Like another. Have you ever had a Honey Crisp?
Yes.
They are so good. Or just like going out to Vala's to their orchard and just like
My problem
I'm
with
eating an
that
apple.
is Fuji's not at the bottom of the apple chain. It's like Red Delicious.
Red Delicious is pretty bad. Yeah.
As
They're
somebody,
feel like
as
they're
somebody
the-
who
are-
was a produce
that-
expert in high school at
With the
Super
little-
Target,
Super Target.
I would like to
Okay,
stick up for the Fuji's.
let's put that down at the bottom.
Okay,
I
well.
wouldn't be interested in that either.
I'm now that we're talking about, S tier apples, there's only one that really I think deserves the highest praise in my opinion, my personal opinion. And that's the Pink Lady. That is my favorite apple.
Pink
I think
Lady
it's
is good.
It's one of the best. It's crisp. They're not they're not mushy. They're tart and sweet if you get them at the right time. That's my favorite.
It's wild how many different apples have been mated over the years.
Yes, I mean it
I mean,
is
when we
true.
were kids, it was like
as a produce
it was-
expert, I
yes.
expect
I
you to
don't
talk
know
about this. Yeah.
What two
There's
apples
so
got
many.
together and had babies?
Yeah.
But have you had the new Cosmic Crisp? They
don't
are
think
like
I've
a
had
smaller
Cosmic Crisp.
version of potentially your Pink Lady and my Honey Crisp got
Oh.
together and had a little baby, and they are smaller, and you can put them in your kids' lunches, and they're just like
Okay.
a little snack.
All right. Well,
But this is, I mean, I
but
feel like we're kind of
I
debating
feel like
this.
if you're saying apple, like as she said, apple flavored. So you kind of went off on the fresh
did.
apple. Like, what's the apple flavored? Like an apple pie.
That's true. I don't know.
I don't know what else is there that's apple
Those
flavored.
caramel apple suckers.
Okay, a
Caramel
caramel apple
apples.
is definitely a more fall appropriate.
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
So, but I didn't realize we are going to spark so much outrage culture from you,
it's
Jess,
true.
over
Yeah.
It's
apples.
true.
Yeah.
How about them apples?
That's a little overreaction over there. How about
Yeah.
them apples?
It's tough, but yeah, pumpkin kind of wins. I'm trying to think of things I could do with apples now, but an apple fritter. I love apple fritters. Those are very
Okay.
good. But I don't think I don't save that for fall. I would have an apple fritter any time of the year if I'm at the right place. But I couldn't think of anything else. I mean, I know people do like breads, kind of like a fruit bread, but I don't know. I've never had
apple cider donuts. That's
apple.
seasonal too. I
Oh,
would
that's
say.
good. Yeah. Apple cider donuts. Those are okay. Now I don't know.
Now we're
I'm
talking.
torn. Now I'm all
Now
torn.
we're back.
What a divisive way to start this. I think we all are overreacting a little bit, but that's just because we're so outraged.
Yes.
I have this job for a reason as the king of transitions. Today, we are going to be talking about the overreaction epidemic. That might even be a little bit hyperbolic to call it an epidemic, but I think that we are, without a doubt, a culture that is in a time of being addicted to outrage. And I think social media obviously plays a role in that because we have a voice and we feel probably like it's louder than it's ever been before. Used to be something happened. You maybe read it in the newspaper, saw a local news broadcast. You know, you complained about it at your church or to your neighbor across the street or to your bowling league. I don't know, but it didn't really go much further than that. But I think with social media, people tend to think that they're, in some ways, I think you see a response. Sometimes people can have outrage and say something and rally voices together and see corporations change their course or other people, canceled and things like that. So it does feel like we have maybe more power than we do. But yeah, that's the topic today. Outrage.
Yeah, and that
overreaction.
That title, Overreaction Epidemic, came from an article written in Time Magazine by Mark Brackett. And so Jess had sent that to us and thought it was
yeah.
And then it spurred on for me some thoughts because we just got an email from a listener recently that felt like it coincided. So we'll probably pick and choose some from his article, but then a few things that this listener, Jennifer, was asking us that was just kind of sparked by this place in our culture that just everyone is just on edge. We're ready to debate. We're ready to fight over things. You've got to pick a side. You've got to be right, and how much that's feeding all the outrage that's out there. But in his article, what Mark said was, we're just in full blown freak out mode. Instead of regulating, we react, and instead of pausing, we pounce. And I think we saw that. We had a conversation a few weeks ago, around Charlie Kirk and just his death and all that. And that was one of those cultural moments. It felt like,
well, what was weird about that was the outrage was about how people responded to it.
Yeah.
And specifically churches, if they had a moment in their service or not. And I don't think I've ever quite been a part of a period of time where people have had that type of reaction to what the programming was on a Sunday morning across the globe. Like it seems so unique because we've lived through so many different tragedies in this country. And maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe because the political temperature is so dialed up right now that's why people feel it so much more. But it is interesting. I think there's a lot of different examples. I mean, there's things like that feel, that are probably much at a higher scale. There's, every time a new Taylor Swift album drops, the lyrical content of that tends to spark outrage, and that's something we're living with recently.
People posting all her new lyrics.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when Alex just posts those on his Instagram story. It's just, this one really inspired me.
I have not listened to a moment of any of that album yet.
Except for the part I played before the show started.
Which we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
I
was outraged by those lyrics, but
yeah,
I just haven't.
Yeah.
It was interesting being an observer because, like, being a former person that worked at the church, and then I also was not on the Charlie Kirk episode. It was interesting just being me because I, would have been in that environment and talking to you guys, and I was out of town for that. But it was just interesting being an observer and kind of watching people's reactions and knowing, even like from being a staff member, of like the conversations that go and the thought that goes into Sunday mornings and everything. We don't need to go there, but as an observer, it just really always it felt to me in those situations, and then just experiencing people online is like they're always ready. Like once you push play, it's like we're ready to go. There is no like revving it up. It's like 0 and we're going 100 once you push play.
Yeah, no time to pause and think about it.
And my thing is like, and the reason that I sent this article is I think it's great and it's a great article to read, but it's your emotions are not the problem. It's how you handle your emotions and then kind of expect other people to handle your emotions. That is the problem in things like that. And so
but I think what's interesting about it is it goes the spectrum of issues that people have. I'm like, I was just looking up some other recent examples, and you had the American Eagle jeans campaign, where people were mad about that, saying that it was a Nazi propaganda, and other people are like, it's not a big deal. Or the Cracker Barrel logo, which we've talked about a little bit, but I mean, it's like so much stuff that is kind of meaningless in a lot of ways, and I feel like in another time would have been overlooked and not even considered. But does that just go to show that people are looking for an excuse to be outraged, or they feel obligated to? I don't know. I'm just asking that question as someone who doesn't fully understand why or how we've gotten here. It'd be interesting to see an autopsy of like current American culture and like from point A to point B. Like, how did we get to this point where, like you said, just people are ran by their emotions, they're ready to go at any time, and it's almost given an expectation. It's you're an outcast, an outsider if you're not ready to be outraged.
And I think it almost seems like people have to present with that too. Like, I'm coming in hot because that is like where all my energy is, and it's gonna like make me, you hear me, make you prove my point. And I don't know, it would be interesting like to talk to a sociologist or somebody like that that's in our culture that's looking at what we're doing, because it is confusing of like, why do we care about the certain things that we do? Like, some of them are nostalgic, some of them are rooted in like spiritual, cultural things, but it's kind of hard to follow the trend. So I think that's too why it gets confusing, or you know, we have to even deal in our own selves of how do we deal with conflict? Because to me, when you come in hot, like I'm like, whoa, he's already at a 10. Like, how am I, like, I don't feel comfortable with conflict, and like I don't want to engage. And so it just kind of starts, then how does that work? Like, then it just starts this back and forth that's feels for me sometimes that it doesn't get anywhere.
And it seems like even there's entire YouTube channels, Instagram channels that are really like designed to try to get outrage out of people, and then it sells, you know, like I think of, you know, there's First Amendment auditors, or, you know, things like that are like, I got a camera everywhere. And like, we're entertained by watching, you know, quote unquote Karens, or we're entertained by people freaking out. Yeah. Like, I even find myself, you know, like, and the headlines grab you or whatever. And we just are so entertained, sadly, by like and I think some of it probably ties into mental health and, you know, things like that. Yeah. But we find ourselves and I think it takes the focus off of us a little bit, you know, maybe whatever outrage I'm feeling or the outrage that I have, I would never act out like that. And so it's everywhere. And there's a part of us that, you know, kind of like a car accident, you know, you're terrified, but also you're like, I have to see what's going on. It's why everybody slows down on the interstate, even if it's on the other side, you know. We just are curious.
So James 1:19 says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
We're not passing.
It's like, oh, that's a good suggestion, right? Like, I feel like that's kind of where a lot of Christians are even at. I'm not even expecting the world to the rest of the world to abide by Scripture, but I feel like even Christians are looking at that and thinking, oh, well, sometimes, but not always.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference. I think most of us hear that as quick to hear, and then slow to speak and become angry. And I think listening and hearing are, you know, two different things. But it does. We've talked about this before. It seems like if you're not reacting to something, you know, people will ask us our opinions. People want Mark's opinion. They want to be told how to respond to things. And so you feel that pressure as if I don't respond, if I am being quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to become angry, then I'm not leading people right. You'll hear people like tell you that.
Yeah. I think, this isn't what we're here to talk about, but I do think there's an aspect of even kind of the podcast era, which, you know, we're a part of in our own little way. There's been kind of a great dumbing down of people in a lot of ways because they go to their parasocial relationships on podcasts and other, social media influencers, YouTube creators, and they seek out those people's opinions. And then a lot of times it gets boiled down to either A, I align with that personality, and so I'm just going to simply agree with everything they say and use that in all of my worldview, or even further simplified into, okay, well, they say they're a Republican or a Democrat, and so I'm just going to whole cloth agree with this person, and this is becoming my identity now. And we fill up every blank space in our world with that noise, whether it is a podcast or a video or social media, to where we don't really have those opportunities of just driving down the road in silence and processing thoughts and thinking like, how do I feel about this? Yeah. What are my convictions on this? How's the Holy Spirit leading me through this situation or this circumstance? How am I thinking critically about it? I don't even know if we're imparting those skills onto the younger generations of critical thinking. I think a lot of times they're just going, I don't know what to do. I'll go to ChatGPT. I'll go to my favorite podcaster, and I will get their take on it, and then that will form my viewpoint.
And we, as a social media, team right now, we're feeding into some of that. It's a reaction. That's kind of what's happening, and especially like Instagram and TikTok, is there's so much reaction type videos, and that's been happening for the last maybe a couple of years, but people really do want to know. They want you to react, and I wouldn't always call it outrage or overreacting, but there is this desire for that to happen. And
sometimes I think it comes from a place of fear, right? You're scared to, if you have the wrong opinion, then you can be alienated by whole groups of people. And so it's easier to go and find the right opinion, so that way you don't have to feel like you're in the wrong.
I think some people too think that they're doing what's right, because we have been telling this generation, and also I would include us millennials in that generation of like, hey, like things are different. Like you're raising your kids different. Like you're going to view the world different. We want you to know, like, what do you believe, and then stand up for it. And so part of me wonders too, is this a product? Is this a creation of this challenge, or like this encouragement and this empowerment that we've been given, that is maybe an overcorrection of that, or maybe too much? I don't know. Like the pendulum can swing so far with that, but it just has made me curious in this conversation of.
This is really random, but I was watching a video of a creator that my son really likes, and he's watching. This guy is watching a video of the creation of Chick-fil-A and the chicken sandwich and all that, and how Truett Cathy invented the chicken sandwich. And the whole time he's denying that that's true. He's like, there's no way that this guy's the first guy to come up with putting fried chicken on a bun. And he's just arguing the whole time watching this video. And then he Googles it, and Google surfaces the first, their answer that says Truett Cathy invented the chicken sandwich in 19 such and such, whatever. And he's like, oh, that's paid. That's got to be paid content right there. That's paid. We just create, and we live in a world where it's hard to get past our own biases. And so when we see that, or we can make up reasons to believe that even things that are true are not, because we want, it just isn't, we can't rationalize it in our own worldview. And then we think, oh, well, this was someone paid off Google to surface this answer. Or that's a small example, but I just think the further and further we get from trusting and having credible sources, that we're kind of separated from reality, and then we live in our own echo chambers, and then we get fired up and ready to be outraged at any moment.
And one of the things Jennifer mentioned in her email that I think talks about this is that our culture shifted from relational engagement to debate. And I think we've even seen that, like, social media was created originally for relational engagement, how are you doing after college, and, Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And now it is like the primary place for debate. Like if you go read any of the comments on most of our TikToks or Instagram, there's not a lot of there is some relational engagement and people really trying to understand one another. But for the most part, it's like people debating each other. And it's become this place where you always have to have a take and always have to be debating about whatever it is. And so it feels like, in a lot of ways, like if we're not competing with we feel like we're connecting with people because we're competing with them. And we always have to be competing with people in some kind of ways. And undoubtedly, like the algorithm, it rewards it. If you see the people that get thrown into you guys were showing me, I won't even mention him yesterday. I don't even remember his name, but like some other gentleman that's been going crazy on Instagram, and the things he was saying, I'm like, that is wild.
Yeah.
And that's not just him. A lot of people. You're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But outrage, it sells. It makes money. It gets ad revenue because it gets eyeballs on it and it gets people reacting to it. And if you can get a video out there and get somebody to replay it and then react and respond to it, then you're just getting your plays up, and it's just this game.
I mean, it's the downside of algorithms. Like, I think it's the thing that a lot of people want to believe that the Silicon Valley, creators of Facebook and things like that, they want to say they did this intentionally with nefarious intentions. And I think maybe the more they learned about it, we might have gotten there, but I don't think that was the initial goal. I think they created an algorithm that prioritized interaction and engagement, like you said, Alex. So then every time someone comments or likes, it tells the algorithm this is good. And what's the best way to get people to comment on something is to make them upset and argumentative so that they will argue with what you're saying and then argue with what other people are saying. And then at a fundamental level, just a basic level, that tells the algorithm this is valuable content because people are commenting. Where I could easily see a world where when they set out to create those algorithms, they're like, oh, yeah, everybody's wishing this person happy birthday or whatever. So the more comments, the better, from an innocent perspective, not realizing kind of the dark outcome of that algorithm and what that means.
And I think it weighs on the people that do not engage like that. I mean, there is a part of me that's like drawn to, oh my goodness, these two people are going at it on my social media, and I'm drawn to that. And then I just being curious about myself as I observe these things, I'm like, man, I catch myself starting to think I'm not good at debating. I'm not going to go ahead and post and go back and forth with someone on social media. That's just not me. But then I even catch myself saying, man, like are you that smart? Like, could you really like hold your own? Like, should you even be like on it just rolls down the hill when we start noticing those things too, of like how that can affect us and as we're engaging in that. And so whether you're engaging in it or not, it can affect you. If you're watching on the sidelines, it can affect like how your inner voice and how you think about yourself.
When I think, to go even a step further in this, when you look at what is prioritized and what is looked at as valuable online, there's definitely different segments, right? There's kind of like, oh, hey, this is like a DIY how-to kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is helpful information. I'm seeking out information that'll help me accomplish a task or help me learn something or learn a new skill. But then there is this side of, okay, well, controversial takes and things like that grow a platform. But I think in a lot of people's minds, they're maybe always kind of thinking, maybe this is my chance, right? Like because social media is proven to be a platform where people can be financially supported and make a career out of it. It kind of makes people double down in a certain way, because once you have that hot take go viral, and you're rewarded for that, if you change or you try to go for a middle ground or you try to be a bridge builder, you're not going to keep growing, and you're not going to be incentivized to be a peacemaker. You're going to be incentivized to continue in the outrage machine. And there, I think kind of by proxy, you're subconsciously teaching everyone that's watching your content that this is what I need to do, whether they are aspirational of becoming an influencer or not. They're seeing this as, oh, this is how we interact with human society now. This is normal, especially with younger generations that are growing up on this type of content, not realizing that the reason people are acting this way, the reason people are owning the libs or whatever the scenario is, because it's pain. It's a paycheck. It's
Right.
they're feeding the algorithm what the algorithm wants, and it's supporting their lifestyle.
Yeah, we love truth tellers, and whatever that means. Like that is what is going to gain you follower. We've talked about this so many times, where some of the reasons people have maybe gotten frustrated with us is that we have conversations and they end up in nuance, and we're just not like,
Or it's like they don't hate each other
yeah,
at the end of the day.
or they can disagree without like telling each other they're idiots.
Yeah.
Which there's a part of that happens because you're in an embodied community too. And I think that's what's missing a lot of times from these spaces is like most of these people were like, oh, they're so brave, they're so bold, but they're not saying it to people's faces. They're not like sitting across from people. And if they are, then they have no empathy very rarely. They're not willing to do what that passage said, be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. And so, but that's what following James 1:19 is not going to build you much of a social media platform. Being a bridge builder, somebody that builds bridges, that's what Jennifer was talking about. Like we don't heroize people like we used to in that kind of way, like a Mother Teresa or people that were, kind of saint-like, that were just people building bridges. Even, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., things like that. People that to us maybe sound like that's courageous, and what he did was courageous, but it wasn't like built on outrage culture. It was built for fighting for truth. It was built on a lot of those different things. And so it'd be fascinating to see how some of the historical characters that have done a lot of things to build bridges, if they were just forced into this world that we're in, how polarizing or canceled or all those kinds of things they would be when every single thing you're forced to respond and react to.
Well, and when we live in a culture of debate, it's about winning. It's not about understanding. It's not about coming to conclusions that are agreeable with one another. It's about dehumanizing the person that's across the table from you who has a different opinion until they're completely demoralized and have lost this argument, and then you move on to the next victim, right? It's not about understanding and listening and empathizing and trying to understand another person's plot in life. It's just about winning an argument. And I think we've seen that more than ever in the last 5 or 6 years, is that that's what it's about. I can use lies, I can use false information, I can use hyperbolic language, I can do whatever it takes to win the argument. And as long as the people rallying behind my cause agree with me, that's all that matters at the end of the day. It doesn't, that as long as the people that are cheering me on agree that I won this argument or whatever, then that I can sleep well at night. Like I'm victorious.
Is that how like we are viewing debate now? Because I even think about just like a debate club in a high school.
Yeah, that term is.
I know. I think that
different
we're
than that.
probably like
We don't even know how to debate.
exactly.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or it's right, because I'm even thinking about just like we have friends that their kids are in debate club and they have to like debate whether
Reason. You have to use reason and logic.
There's
and all
like
of those
rules,
things.
parameters, principles, I think, that you have to follow. It's not just like taking digs or rage baiting people, like taking digs at them to like get them going. So, but I think that that's also like a confusing part of it too, where it's like we get angry.
Yeah, I think debate is a lost art, and we think debate is that's what's actually happening. And no one that we would label for the most part as debaters, in social media and things like that, are actually doing much debate at all. They're just like, it's like who can drop the biggest truth bomb and who can drop the mic, and it's like all about who can silence the other person at the end of the day, instead of who can invite or create curiosity, who can like getting someone to shut up. We feel like, oh, I won the debate. But man, if my entire goal is to just end the relationship or to make you look small and make me look bigger, then what did I do? I didn't win you. I wasn't winsome. And I think that's the thing about Jesus is, one, for the most part, the people that we would say, quote unquote, drop the mic on, or two, as we would use that phrase, was like religious people. It was the people that were like getting ticked off over who he ate lunch with, and it was the people that, you know, he was doubling down in the Sermon on the Mount, talking about his kingdom and that what he was building. And if your left eye causes your right eye, you know, it's a sin, gouge it out. And he was, if you have an enemy and they slap you, you know, turn the other cheek. All those kinds of things that Jesus often talked about were directed usually towards those who would probably end up more in the religious kind of category. And he was very invitational. He wasn't trying to intimidate or lord over people that were less than. He was inviting them, creating curiosity, meeting with people like Nicodemus or people that were curious and on the margins. And that's the way Jesus usually interacted with people. It wasn't, let me come tell you the truth and slap you over the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I see a lot in this era of whatever we want to call it, I don't know if debate's the wrong term. I don't know what, but it's people arguing that your emotions should not matter, that your emotions are clouding your judgment, and your emotions can never trump logic, right? And I just wonder, like, where do we find that balance? Because I do think our emotions are kind of, you know, those smoke signals to what's going on. Now, some people lose control of them and it becomes a forest fire, but still, where do you think emotions play into this in a healthy way? Pause. For thought.
I feel like I probably think about this more than average because of, again, my profession, and I'm curious about people's emotions and how they feel. And so a lot of times when I see an angry person, I have the knowledge that anger is a secondary emotion that's covering and protecting something else. And so it's interesting to notice that in other people. I even do it like in my family, like in my marriage, of like if Ben and I are having an argument and he's feeling angry, I'm like, that is covering an emotion that you're trying to protect, because I have not created a safe space for you to express more. So we're often not inviting people into more, but I do think that emotions do play into it. But as this article talks about, our emotions, when they're dysregulated, they're not serving us. They're not doing anything to help us. And so I think being curious, noticing that about ourselves, and realizing like when you need to take a pause or just to take a breath, and even in somebody else, it's like we need to take a break with that. I'm like kind of trying to resist like not going off about this, because I think that this also has to do with how our brain works too.
Yeah.
One of the tools that that the article writer gave Mark Brackett is when it comes to emotion. You mentioned this earlier, Jess. Our problem isn't emotion, but it's how we handle it. And so one of the tools that he gives people is to pause, name the feeling, reframe, and then reach out. Would you agree, disagree with that? Is that kind of, would you phrase it a different way if you're talking to some of your clients? Because to me, as like a pastor, that sounds a lot like that's self-control. That's discernment. You should listen to the Holy Spirit, but maybe people that aren't more spiritual aren't coming from that, just a practical way from, counseling and psychology.
Yeah, I think that that's probably one of the simplest, even though to some people it may seem more complicated, but even just like taking a breath. I was just at the American Association of Christian Counselors. I'm a part of that, and I was just
flex on us. Let's go.
And every couple of years they have a world conference, and I was just there, and Bob Goff was there speaking to this topic, and he said, and it was so profound to me. He was like, we don't take a beat in life. Like often, even when we're talking to people, we say, hey, how are you? Good. How am I? Good. And this plays into this where it's like, we don't often take a beat. Like we need to take a beat, and that allows us to do that pause. It allows distance between that high tension of maybe anger or whatever happening in that debate, and it lets us have some distance between those strong emotions to even collect ourselves. But when we take a beat, we can pause. We can say, maybe it's really difficult for us to name emotions, but we can say, I'm not feeling that great. And I can't name my emotion, but I just know that I need to pause. And then I would say a reframe would be like, hey, an easy reframe is like, hey, I know that we're kind of going back and forth. Like, I still care about you. I want to hear your heart. And then continue on. Like there are ways to put a breath in between these high energy situations that I think that we miss. I think that like this is, as a woman, easier for me to do than for guys to be like, hey guys, like, or hey, and I'm not trying to like diminish, but it's just like, it's a harder thing to stop and to do it. But
you're
if
saying to like connect with our emotions or express like what,
and that's
that
not
is,
in a negative way. It's just, it's easier for me to be like, hey, like, I love you guys. I want us to all get along like that. Like my relational side, like,
and then I just go chop some
and you'd
wood.
be like, Jess, shut it. No.
Whoa.
You would go chop some wood. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Okay.
I hear you.
Alex would go shoot an animal. That's his thing.
Yeah, that's.
But
I'm
I'm just validating that I know that like what I'm saying, like people could be like, oh, well, she's a girl. Like this is easier for her to get to. And it's a principle, honestly, that we could all just do a little better at, including me.
Before I moved offices recently, and before I moved, I had a passage written on my whiteboard. I haven't redone it again because it's too convicting. But it's from Proverbs 18, and Proverbs 18:1 says, "An unfriendly person pursues selfish ends, and against all sound judgment starts quarrels. Fools find no pleasure in understanding, but they delight in airing their own opinions." And that just is, I mean, for me, that was a piece of wisdom that someone shared with me from that piece of wisdom. And it's a kind of another way. And James does this a lot. James is probably one of the more proverbial New Testament books. And so that thought even of being, quick to listen and slow to speak reminds me of that passage. A fool finds no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. And I got to be honest, like sometimes I find delight in that, right?
Yeah.
I want people to know I'm right. But at the end of the day, that's foolishness. Against all odds, they start quarrels. I mean, against all sound judgment, they start quarrels. And so, I think it is to that discernment piece, that having sounding boards, all of those types of things. I know both you and I, Eric, sometimes we've like written things, and that maybe feel touchy about a certain cultural moment and things like that. And I've even appreciated like we've been able to say, hey, give me a read over for this before it goes live on the internet, like just to kind of check your tone and check your heart. Yeah. Because I want my opinion to be heard. I feel strongly about this, and I think I have something to speak into it. But I also know that sometimes I get overridden by that, and so inviting that wisdom, I think, is something we just don't do often enough. Yeah. I don't do that often enough, probably personally. Before you tweet or whatever. It's
tough too, because I think, I don't know, you guys have taken the spiritual gifts test before, right? Yeah. I always score really high in discernment. And so I never know, I don't always know how to take that, right? Like
I agree.
I think that can almost like lead to your ego going, well, I always have a pulse on what's going on because I have the spiritual gift of discernment. But excuse me, I think there are times where something will happen in culture and it's kind of like, oh, I just, there's a guttural reaction where you're just kind of going, I kind of see to the core of this, why people are reacting this way. And maybe I don't fully have all the facts. I don't have like, I can't reason it all yet, but I just, it's like almost like this internal compass, which I do credit a spiritual gifting too. A lot of times going, okay, I think this is the Spirit helping me understand this. And I think we've all experienced that at times where we go, I kind of see to the core of this, but if you just speak into it off the cuff, people tend to get defensive. Where in my mind, I'm like, I'm feeling my way through this a little more than others are, where others are just kind of being led by circumstance in the heat of the moment. And that's just not always met with grace. And so, yeah, it's tricky to understand how to navigate that stuff a lot of times, I think, for me personally, because I'm like, I think I know pretty confidently what's going on here, but if I speak into it too quickly or sometimes even too arrogantly because I think I know better, then that just leads to more discourse.
And I think one of the things that I've learned, and I've probably actually seen you grow in, like it just is in time we've worked together, is that truth and tone aren't opposites, you know? So sometimes tone, especially people that don't know you, like I run into this a lot because I have the worst resting face in the world, or I can be very monotone. And, you know, whether that's meeting someone for the first time and it's a funeral or whatever, I'm meeting with a happy couple that's super excited they're engaged, and I just have my terrible resting face and I don't match their, you know, their excitement or what, or their sadness. I've just had to learn that a lot in my own self, that, okay, my tone really does support my ability to accept or to tell the truth in a lot of ways. And I think trying to figure that out, because I think a lot of times in our world, like how loud you are, how amped up you turn the speakers determines how convicted you are. Like the loudest people are the most convicted about it. So if I don't have my Facebook profile picture tuned to it, if I don't post about it all the time, if I'm not putting things out there, then I don't have these convictions. And I think that's just an unfortunate thing that we have, is that we buy into. You have to be loud and screaming,
and it's a trap. Like, I mean, you mentioned that, and for me personally, where I've grown in this is I think for me, I have the gift of wit sometimes and sarcasm, and when you pair that with being able to kind of quickly react to things, people don't respond well. And so I think for me, I would just a lot of times approach things that way, and I would be kind of brash and harsh to get my point across. And I think the best analogy I can come up with is kind of like when you're raising your children and sometimes they don't listen, right? Like, I mean, I have an example of this just recently. I had Dexter, my son, he's learning to drive, and we were driving. And I mean, when you don't remember when you're my age what it's like to drive a vehicle for the first time, you know, and you're overcome by everything going on. You're operating a steering wheel and gas and brake pedals, and you're trying to be aware of everything. And I'm trying to tell him to stop at this 4-way stop, you know, to take turns. And I was telling him like 3 times in just a calm voice, and he still went through it. And as he's going through it, I'm like kind of yelling at him, like, stop, you got to stop. Are you listening? You know, and I kind of overreacted. But in that moment, you realize that got the attention. Eventually, you know, and it didn't get the attention maybe I wanted, because then I like hurt his feelings. But I think a lot of times in my life, I would lead with that because I knew that's what would get the attention. Like if I just go out and I see what's going on, I can see it. I have this gift of discernment. If I just call out this person's sin right in front of everyone in the room and I'm kind of a jerk about it, I'm not wrong about what I just said. I spoke truth, but the way I did it was wrong. I hurt people. I damaged relationships. I burnt bridges, and that's where I think that's what's tough for people to realize. But yet, in our culture, these are the people that are getting celebrated right now. The people who can be mean and dehumanizing and demoralizing and crush people's spirits, they're the ones who are being celebrated. And I think part of that is also because there is a whole sect of people who feel alienated. There's a generation of young men who feel isolated and lonely, and they don't have a voice, and they've been told by society that they're not good enough, and they're whatever, they're too feminine, or they're this or they're that, or they're what, all these things. And so I think when you have those types of groups that hear a voice that is saying what they can't say, they're going to be drawn to that like a bug to a flame, you know? And so I think, I don't know how we work on that, but I think as a culture, we have to be aware of that and realize that what we celebrate, even when we don't celebrate it visibly, is really important, and everyone's watching around us.
I think it's also like paying attention to what we celebrate, paying attention to what gets our attention, what we're consuming, paying attention to what we don't look away from, what we put on a pedestal. And then also, like, I think a way to apply this into our own personal lives is like, what takes up our bandwidth? Like, what are we talking about with our friends? Like, can we touch on this subject and can we move on to other things? Or is this something that we're connecting with people over? Because that's only going to continue this. And as we're talking, I'm just sitting here thinking like, man, it's hard to be a human in this world.
Yeah.
And to deal with all the ways that the enemy attacks and comes at us and wants to divide Christians and wants Christians to feel polarized against people that don't care about Jesus. Like, there is so much. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's really difficult to even to have discernment and know what to do. And so I think the thing is, like, we commit to trying, we commit to doing something different, and to be the person that maybe changes the conversation a little bit, maybe encourages something to be different, or, you know, sets the example of someone's going off and like, let me ask this person another question, versus like if they're going on a monologue about maybe that they've been thinking about, like, what can we do? I don't know if you guys have other ideas around that, but to me, it's like, this is how what this looks like on the ground, like in our personal lives.
I think one of the things I often find myself becoming in a trap to is I say I'm seeking truth, but really I'm just seeking confirmation for what for my bias already. And so, like, to seek truth is to lay down your bias and to lay down. I mean, obviously we all have a worldview. We all have things that, but if I'm sincerely seeking truth, then I remember, you know, I had a best friend growing up that ended up in a murder trial, and there's no way. Like, I grew up with this kid. There, you know, we went to church together. We hung out all the time together, like, and all of the evidence of his life to me and our friendship and all of that pointed to no way he's guilty. Like, no way he's guilty. I'm seeking confirmation for proving that there's no way he did this heinous crime. But the reality is, like, I had to be confronted with the truth of the facts in front of us and say, there's no way he didn't do this, you know? And for me, like, that was one of those times of figuring out, okay, all of my senses, everything I know tells me something different. But then there's, like, actual truth. And if I want, I could continue to live in the lie that he didn't do it. And, you know, I know people, you know, some of his family members and things like that are still, like, seeking these random things, this possibility that it's not true, but you're just like, you were just stuck in that, and you're stuck in your confirmation. And that's one example, but I do that all the time, probably spiritually, where, you know, there's a theological point that I hold to, and I'm seeking arguments to prove and confirm my bias rather than growing in, but Lord, what do you have to say about this? How do I read books that are anti my point or my bent? How do I read things that actually let me process through that? And that's difficult. That's way more time consuming. That is way more uncomfortable. It's all of the things that I don't want to walk into. I rather would just have someone tell me, you're right, and here's the facts to back it up. And so I think that's one of the difficult things that I have to ask myself as I, you know, try to process. Am I actually seeking truth, or am I just seeking my own confirmation?
Yeah, and I think on the flip side of that is, like, sometimes I could be swayed by a really well delivered thesis on TikTok about a subject by someone. You know what I mean? Like I watched a 10-minute video on a subject and go, oh wait, I think I don't believe what I thought I believed anymore. You know,
Right.
And so it is a constant balance, and I think, man, finding that time to read scripture, find wise counsel, talk to your community, and get outside of your echo chamber, break free of your confirmation bias, let yourself be challenged to the point of uncomfort. Don't, even when you feel like a little icky in your tummy, you know, like it's okay to like navigate those waters a little bit to find truth and not internet clickbait truth, but actual grounded truth.
I think that's good.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, remarks as we start to wrap up on this?
One of the things I help serve in middle school ministry, and one of the things that the guy named Steve, who's a small group leader, said the other day when he was talking to the middle schoolers, and as a preacher that likes rhyming and alliteration, I really appreciate it, but it was good. And you know, it's been in the back of my mind this week is when you feel yourself getting furious, get curious.
Oh wow.
And so like just that idea of like when I'm feeling this outrage, when I'm feeling, because I think that's good, you know, a lot of the time, but I need to get curious about, one, why am I having these emotions? Like, where are these emotions coming from? What are they rooted in? But if it's at a person, I need to get curious about, hey, okay, what's their story? What's the reason? What's the pain? It's not dismissing, like if somebody did something wrong, but what maybe is the pain that's causing, you know, this to happen? What's the backstory? So getting more curious, because at that, it gives us what we talked about last week, I think a little bit more ability to be empathetic and have empathy. And so I thought that was just a really good nugget that I've been kind of processing and trying to hold on to, because I think curiosity isn't weakness. You know, ultimately it's wisdom. You know, to gain more wisdom, you have to have curiosity. I think people just think that doubt is like this. I think that the value of doubt is it just keeps you open to God's, you know, ability to keep shaping you and keep researching and explore as a finite person an infinite God and the infinite things that he wants to teach you. So continue to be curious. I think I want to always be known as someone that's curious more than always confident in everything.
Slow and curious. That's the Christian remake of Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
We could
Slow
do
and curious.
like 46 versions of it too.
Yeah. We'll go to space in one of the movies. Jess, did you have any other
I think
thoughts?
challenging yourself of what does that look like to take a beat, and knowing that that's so helpful, and it's not prescriptive, but to subscribe to what does that look like in your life to take a beat that lets your brain slow down. It literally creates, if you look up your limbic system, new pathways of how it can process and regulate itself. So when you're going through this, what does that look like? What does taking a beat like? What does changing conversations in your personal lives and your community groups look like?
That's really good.
And Jesus in Matthew 11 invites us, learn from me, because I'm gentle and humble in heart. And so ultimately, if you're struggling with this, man, Jesus is inviting you. Learn from him. Pray to him, invite the Spirit to do this, but learn from him. His life is documented. And so learn how he dealt with confusion and chaos and people that were anti his message and people that were, you know, fighting with him and fighting for him. Learn from him. And you'll find out he's gentle and humble in heart, which is very different than everything in this outrage kind of culture that we've talked about.
That's good. All right. With that, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us. You can do that on social media, on Instagram or TikTok at CCCOMA Podcast, or you can send us an email to podcast@cccomaha.org, or leave us a voicemail at 402-885-9930. But until next time, we'll talk to you then.